Good morning everybody, good afternoon actually. This video I want to talk about landings. And landings involves two things. One is actually landing the aeroplane. The other thing is the approach to landing. So let's go through approaches first of all. Okay, let's get the plane in there. Okay, the approach is done with it should be a steady body angle. So the angle of the fuselage and the wings to the ground should remain pretty much consistent all the way through the approach. Okay, what I mean by that is let's get our approach started. Okay, the plane is sitting kind of level. It's not pointing up or down, but the plane is falling. I'm not touching the elevator because I've reduced power. If I increase power, the plane will level off. And so an approach is really controlled by the power. The elevator is there to control the angle of the plane, okay, the body angle of the plane, and the power is there to control your descent rate. So let's try it again from the other end. So let's look at that again. So I'm in approach now. I'm reducing power now. The plane will start to sink. And I increase power. And the plane will level off. Okay? And what's important there is that it says a few things about your approach. One is, by the way, if you fly real aeroplanes, even model aeroplanes, it's all the same. That's how it's taught, is that you control your descent with your power and you control your attitude with your pitch. Okay, so we're intending to keep the plane level, or the body of the plane level, and if we want to sink now, we can cut power, and then to level off for the flare and to land, we can add power. Okay, so see, I'm just adding a little bit of power to keep the plane from descending so much, and that's one way of flaring. Flaring shouldn't be just about pulling back on the elevator, even though there are elements to that as well. Okay, so does that make sense about the approach? You should be flying with the plane pretty much level and using your power to control how fast the plane sinks or descends or doesn't descend. Okay, so zero power now, not touching the elevator, increase power, tiny bit up, and we're level flight again. Okay. The next thing I want to talk about, which is really important, is stalling as part of your landing approach. Okay, so stalling, if I'm up here and I stall my plane, okay, it's fine. Okay, I'll stall it, but I've got time to recover. Okay, if I'm a few inches off the ground and I stall my plane, that's not a bad thing either. It doesn't hurt the plane to stall a few inches off the ground, but anywhere from, say, treetop level down to a few inches off the ground, it is important not to stall the plane. Okay, I have seen for real many a time, I've even done it myself, planes that stall when they're preparing to land, and in fact my plane I broke it in half. Okay, I'll try and reproduce pretty much exactly what happened to me. I was flying my downwind leg. I was making my turn from downwind to onto the base turn of the funnel, and I was kind of roughly here, and I got too slow, and the plane tipped over and I crashed. Bang, straight to the ground. That's the danger of stalling when you're not near the few inches off the ground or quite high off the ground. Okay, and the place where it happens all the time, or most often, is on the turn of the base. Okay, so here's the trees that I'm using as my markers. Not really. Here's my start of my turn. If you get slow here and stall the plane, it'll tend to want to fall down and you'll crash it. Okay, let's not do that now. And that's what commonly happens. Even in some fields, people even talk about a part of the airfield, typically where the base turn onto base is made, which has radio glitches. Lots of planes crash over there. Okay, so we want to avoid that by either, when you're making a turn, you're descending the plane. Okay, the plane is falling. Okay, you can do it. That's one way to avoid stalling. Or more commonly, you just simply want to add power for that turn. So as you're coming in, you finish your downward leg, you're turning around the plane to land it, keep the power on through that turn. Okay, that turn there, keep the power on, and then when you turn to final, then you have more control. The other thing that's bad with the stall on the base turn is that because you're turning, the stalling speed of the plane will be higher, the plane will more easily stall, and also when you stall in a turn, if you stall straight and level, the plane will tend to mush or possibly drop a wing. When you stall in a turn, the plane will definitely drop a wing. Okay, so the worst possible time, you're in your turn, onto base, plane stalls, and it's in the ground. Okay, let's talk about some landings now. I'm not saying I'm the expert. What I want to show is there's a number of different ways to land an aeroplane. Okay, and we're going to show some of them, ranging from fast landings to slow landings. Something I see quite often is people doing these fast landings. I'll try and show one with this plane. Okay, we're coming in really fast, and then we attempt just to flare just above the ground. Okay, the plane is still really moving. Okay, that's a fast landing. Even though this plane flies fairly slowly, let's have a look at a fast one again, I think. We're actually flying the plane down onto the ground, and there's the problem with it sometimes. A tail dragger aeroplane, you can see it happening, when the main wheels hit, the tail is still in the air, the tail the centre of gravity being behind the front wheels, the plane will push its tail down, and that causes the wings to increase angle of attack, and that's what causes the bouncy landings. Okay, so if you are quite fast in a tail dragger and you hit with any pressure, the plane will tend to just bounce back up into the air. Okay, if you're concerned about that, you can just add power and fly away, or you can try and control it from there. But so there we go. That's that bounce that happens. Okay, let's try what I'd call a typical landing, or the way that they're normally taught. Okay, which is to come in at a moderate speed and then to cut power at the kind of threshold of your landing, or just above the ground, and then fly the plane to the ground or flare it onto the ground. Okay, so we come in, we're controlling our height with our speed. Okay, keeping the body at the same angle. Okay, and then as we get to the point where we want to commence the landing, about here, we cut power and flare the plane. And that's quite a good way to land the aeroplane. Okay, but there are other ways to do it too. And the next one is going to be a bit slower. Okay. Now, you know how you control your descent with the throttle? You add power to reduce the rate of descent, cut power to increase it. Well, what's wrong then with adding power to land? I'll show you what that looks like. Okay, so our descent is here at fairly low power. Getting the plane to come down to where we want to land it. Okay, a little tiny bit of up and ladder applied. Okay, and now, as we're getting close to the ground, we actually increase the power. So we go from descending to flying level. Across the ground. Okay, that's what I mean by, instead of cutting power, you can actually increase it a little to stop that rate of descent instead of using the elevator to flare out. Okay, then we get to really slow landings and then almost a Harrier landing. Okay, I'm going to get the plane really slow. Definitely controlling my descent with the power now. Okay, so low power, adding a little tiny bit of power now. There we go. The good thing about those sort of landings is that they're quite slow, the landing speed. You are risking slightly a stall, which is quite low and shouldn't be problematic. But the advantage is that it's quite slow, so the plane tends not to bounce off the ground. Let's try that again. Getting the plane flying quite slowly, and even slower as we approach the ground. Okay. And then adding power. So I'm now adding a bit of power, pulling back on the stick. I can really control the rate of descent of the plane onto the ground. Okay, key things are, don't stall the plane below tree level or above, or unless you're very short distance of runway. Keep the stall strike high in the air. And there are different ways to land a plane, not just one. Okay. Let's try a bit of Harrier landing. Falling, adding power. Just an extreme version of what I just showed you. So now, in a Harrier, adding more power. Plane just lands. Thank you. That's the landing video.